Hi, I'm going to show in this video a business pattern that we have implemented in Corvos. Try to explain what the goal of this module is and where it fits into the business requirement. The thing is that from time to time, some module has a set of settings of configuration options that make one record in that module different from another record in that module. So for example, we can have different necessities on a record depending on some values of that record. There's a very clear example of this in Corvos already, and that's on the sales order. The sales order has the option to add a recurring event. This block here, the recurring invoice information. So what this block says is that if you enable the recurring billing on this particular record, if you activate this on this particular record, this particular sales order will automatically produce invoices depending on the frequency and the options and that you set here. So this setting, which is actually present here on this record, is totally different from other records that don't have the recurring invoice functionality active. But since the information itself is saved in a block on the sales order, all of the sales orders actually have this information. They all have a whole set of fields, 6 actually, and most of the sales orders are totally empty because they don't even have that option enabled. But those that do have it enabled have a different set of values. So they have different frequency, different starts, different ends, and whatever. So the business pattern that we're trying to solve here, the business requirement, is that depending on some conditions of a record, that record in that module will have a set of configuration options that are particular to that record. So the thing is that then there will be a process that will read those configuration options and do whatever it has to do. So in this case of the sales order, we have a cron that runs every 12 hours and it basically reads these variables here and it does whatever it has to do. So the example that I'm going to show you and what we have implemented, how to solve this, is an invoice type. So basically, if we have invoices of different types, we're going to have different sales commissions, different sub-payments that are going to have to be made on that invoice, and another set of variables which can be anything that we want actually. So what we have implemented to solve this business requirement is another module. That module is here in GitHub. It's module process settings. Actually, it's process settings module. This first module here should be changed to the name of the module that you are customizing. So for example, in this case, we are going to customize the invoice module. So I should actually download this module as a template and change the name to invoice process setting. And in the same process where I'm renaming this one, I should add all of the fields that I need to configure my invoices. So all of the different commissions, all of the different payments, all of the different rules that will apply to the invoice type that I define. Okay, so all of that is kind of explained here. I kind of tried to show in detail exactly what we are trying to do with this module. This could be an example of what a real process setting would look like. So for example, we have this invoice type code. We have if this invoice type is actually active or not. We have a set of people that have to be paid depending on the configuration of this record. We have percentages of commissions that have to be set. We have also here actually a module master dependency. So we actually, this settings would be a master to another set of related records. So it would be a master detail relation. Notice that this module settings, this process setting module, is just a normal module in Corvus. It has some special functionality which I will explain now. But as a normal module, you can add as many fields as you want. You can launch workflows. You can have another relations, a whole set of other relations. So you can make this settings module as complicated as you need, depending on the business process that you need to implement. So basically what I'm trying to say is that we have a module for all of the configuration options that depend on the record. So for that sales order, instead of having the fields directly on the sales order, we have just one field, which is a UE type 10, a relation field, that is selecting what set of configuration options that particular sales order has. So we would have, in this case, we're going to have a predefined set of sales commission depending on the invoice type. So I will have a different set of module process settings records that will be selected depending on the invoice type. Or in that case, we would have different frequencies and different setups depending on the type of sales order or frequency that they have defined or whatever. So basically we just have a new module where we save all of the information that the process that's going to be running on those records will be able to read. So how does that look actually here? I implemented a real quick example here on the invoice. The information that I created is actually here in the module itself. There's a test directory where you can find the business maps that I'm going to show you now and some records that I created on the process settings module. When you install the process settings module, it will create a relation field on the module that it is configuring. So in this case, we're configuring the invoice module. So I can find here when I install the module process settings, it actually created this field for me. The module, besides having any field that you need to be able to configure your settings that your process needs, it must have 4 fields mandatory, which are the module that it is related with, okay, the field mapping that will define the fields that you want to show on screen when you select this type of configuration, and you can also define a validation and a dependency map when that happens. This will make a little bit more sense as soon as you see it in action. So these 4 fields are mandatory. After that, you can add as many fields as you want, make it as complex or as easy as your business process requires. Okay, you just add more fields here to whatever you need. In this case, I added 2 types, an invoice create and an invoice approved, which means that when the invoice is type created, I will apply this filter map, this master detail mapping. So this is going to tell me what fields I want to show on the invoice when this type is selected. And this is a dependency map, just a normal dependency map that I chose and I created just so that we could see that it's actually loading this map. And the other configuration options is the approved, where I see here that if the invoice is approved, I select this set of fields and this action here. The maps themselves are basically these. I have a master detail for the module process settings. Okay, I have the invoice field dependency. This is actually the one that's doing the new stuff and the magic. Then I have these 2 field dependencies that we created and 2 filters. Okay, yeah, so actually this one I think we do not need at all. That must be an example. Yeah, that's even on the assets module. That's an example. It's these. Basically, if we look first at the master detail, this is a very simple master detail where basically I'm just saying that I'm working on the invoice module. I'm linking the invoice and the settings through their IDs. And then I'm showing you here at this is the detail view. I have to set the fields that I want to show. So in the detail view, I'm going to show the sales commission, the ship street, and the invoice status, and the ID of the configuration module. And I have to repeat that in the edit view, so I have them both. The map that we selected here is a very simple map that says if the process set ID, the configuration module, is set, then launch get the sales commission from this field here. And this field is actually a value on the module, so it will get me that value. And here we have another field dependency map where I'm selecting another set of fields, but basically it's the same kind of map. I'm just showing you that depending on the type of status that I picked on the invoice, I will get different field master details and field dependencies selected. In this case, the field dependency will be filling up the excise duty or whatever. So basically what happens here is that what really is the important one is this one, the invoice field dependency. This one is the one that's going to trigger a new function that we have added in Corbos, which is the load settings. So basically I'm going to say here, if the invoice status goes into created mode, then launch this load settings and load the record 45031. The record 45031 is this one. Yes, if you see down there at the bottom on the status bar, you'll see that it's 45031. So basically what we're saying, that load settings, what it does is that it says, okay, if this is triggered, I have to go to the module process setting module and get this record, the invoice create in this case, and I have to load the field map so I can filter the fields, and I have to load this dependency map and this validation map, which in this case is empty, so we won't have any. But if you load one there, it will. So this is actually the really important part about this business pattern. I mean, the module itself is just a module. I mean, you could have done that already, and you could actually do most of the process and the logic just using the normal field dependencies and the workflows and everything we have in Corbos. The only thing that this one kind of brings is that it makes things a little easier. It kind of gives you some of that business process done for you, so you don't have to implement all of the field dependencies and the restrictions, and even change the look and feel of the invoice type. Let's see what this looks in action. So here in the invoice, I'm going to create a new invoice. And as you can see, it's just a normal create with all the fields. I mean, the normal stuff that we have on the invoice module. But we have this new field here, which is the settings field. If I come over here to the status, which is where I have that invoice type field dependency selected, it says that if I click on created, it's going to link the invoice, the module process setting record 45031, which is for the created type invoices, and it's going to apply the master detail and the field dependency map that we have there. So as soon as I click here, we get a reload, and as you can see, the filter field has been applied. It got rid of all of the fields basically. I mean, it just kept the fields that I have on the filter map. So it makes it a little easier for our user to know that if you're in that type, you just have to fill in these fields. But it also loaded the map, the dependency map. If you notice, the dependency map said that if there's a value in the configuration field, I have to load the sales commission, and that's what happened here. It loaded that 11.11 there, and it linked this record with the invoice create, which is the settings that we have for this type. So invoice create is a record in a module that we can save all of the configuration options that we need, make it as complicated as we need, that you can have anything there, relations and anything, and we will link this type of invoice to that record. If I go back and instead of created, I select approved, which is the other load settings record module, record that we have in the process settings record, you will see that instead of loading the other fields, it loads another set of fields, because this map here has a different set of fields than this map here. Okay, they approved and created. And the field dependency also loaded this 22.22 when this one was selected. So I mean, basically it's that. So I could save here, save process settings, and we save this one just to see that effectively it will. I mean, obviously this is selected here, so is this continued true? I need to select the product here. Okay, so I have a new record, a new invoice, and I have this this invoice type is configured with these options that I have on this module process setting record. So basically it's just the business case where you have so many options and configuration settings to define your business process, that you actually want to create another module, save all of those configuration options there so you don't clutter up the main record with all of those details which nobody really cares about. I mean, they're just operational things. And then you will have to create some workflows or some process, backend process or crons or whatever to read those data, those settings, and actually do whatever it has to do, create the payments or the commissions or whatever the business logic requires. The only really nice part here is that we have that extra option that will load the field dependencies, filter the fields for you, and kind of make it a little more user friendly than it would be if you just had to use the standard field dependencies and maps and the like. Well, I hope that helps, and let me know if it works.